a U.S. service member was allegedly killed by his own duty weapon, a SIG P320 that reportedly fired without anyone pulling the trigger. Lawsuits are piling up claiming these guns are going off by themselves. Videos are circulating of P320s discharging when dropped or bumped. And now the entire gun community is asking one very uncomfortable question. How the heck did the US Army choose this gun over the legendary Beretta 92 and the rock-solid Glock 19X? Because what started as a routine military contract is now looking like one of the most questionable procurement decisions in recent history. And the more these uncommanded discharge reports pile up, the angrier people are getting about the choice the Army made back in 2017. Now, before we dive into this military mystery, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're about to uncover some serious behind-the-scenes drama that most people never heard about. This wasn't just a simple gun competition. This was a multi-billion-dollar decision that involved congressional hearings, GAO investigations, and enough controversy to make a Netflix documentary. And now, with all these P320 problems making headlines, it's looking even worse in hindsight. We're going to break down why the Army ditched the legendary Beretta M9, examine what really happened during the competition between SIG and Glock, and figure out whether the military made a massive mistake, or if they just got unlucky with their choice. The Beretta M9 legacy. Let's start with the gun that started this whole mess, the Beretta M9. This Italian beauty served the US military for 30 years with some serious credentials. When the Army adopted the M9 in 1985, it was a game changer. We're talking about a gun that averaged one malfunction every 1,750 rounds during testing. That's insane reliability. The 1911 it replaced one malfunction every 162 rounds. The Beretta was literally 10 times more reliable. The M9 proved itself in combat from Panama to Iraq to Afghanistan. It survived saltwater submersion tests, concrete drop tests, and being buried in mud. This gun was basically the Nokia phone of the pistol world. Ugly, reliable, and nearly indestructible. The problems nobody talks about. By 2015, the M9 was showing its age. Troops were reporting frequent failures to feed, and the open slide design was letting in desert sand and causing problems. But here's the kicker. A lot of these problems weren't actually the gun's fault. The Army had decided to save money by buying cheap magazines from third-party suppliers instead of getting them from Beretta. These bargain basement magazines had a phosphate finish that reacted poorly with fine dust, causing widespread reliability issues. It's like buying a Ferrari and then putting discount tires on it and wondering why it doesn't handle well. The gun was fine. The magazines were garbage. On top of that, many M9s had been in service for 20+ years. Even the best-built guns wear out eventually. And the military was basically trying to squeeze more life out of guns that had already served their time. The Army's Wishlist. When the Army announced they wanted a new handgun system, they had specific requirements the M9 couldn't meet. They wanted modular grips for different hand sizes, Picatinny rails for accessories, and the ability to mount optics without major modifications. Beretta actually tried to save the contract with the M9A3, an updated version that addressed every single complaint the Army had: better grips, factory rail, improved internals, and a redesigned safety. They even claimed they could deliver it for less money than the original M9 contract. The Army's response? Thanks, but no thanks, we're not even going to test it. Sometimes people just want something new, regardless of logic. The Great Competition. So, the Army launched the XM17 Modular Handgun System competition, and it came down to two finalists, the SIG P320 and the Glock 19X. The Glock 19X was basically Glock's attempt to build the perfect military pistol. full-size frame, compact slide, and all the reliability Glock is famous for. It checked every modularity box the Army wanted. The SIG P320 took a different approach with its modular fire control unit, basically the serialized part of the gun that could be swapped between different frames and slides. It was innovative, but also more complex. According to the Government Accountability Office, the Glock was more accurate and more reliable during testing, so naturally the Army chose the SIG, because that makes perfect sense, right? The controversy explodes. Glock wasn't having it. They filed a formal protest claiming the competition was rigged. The testing was incomplete, and the Army made their decision before the tests were even finished. Here's where it gets spicy. Glock alleged that the Army was supposed to test both guns through 35,000 rounds, just like they did with the original M9. Instead, they stopped testing at 12,500 rounds and declared SIG the winner. That's like judging a marathon based on the first 10 miles. The GAO investigation found that Glock might have had a point. The SIG had higher stoppage rates and accuracy concerns, but the Army picked it anyway. Why? Because SIG's bid was $100 million cheaper than Glock's. So once again, the military didn't pick the best performing gun. They picked the cheapest one that met their requirements. The real performance numbers. When the Department of Defense finally released their testing data, it painted an interesting picture. The P320 initially failed to meet reliability standards with standard ammunition. We're talking about one stoppage every 343 rounds for the full size and every 197 rounds for the compact. Remember, the M9 went 1,750 rounds between stoppages, so the improved replacement was actually less reliable than the gun it was replacing. But SIG fixed the problems. After some adjustments to magazines, springs, and internal components, the P320 was achieving over 2,000 rounds between stoppages. That's actually better than the original M9 performance. The question is, should the Army have adopted a gun that needed fixing, or should they have picked the one that worked right from the start? The drop safety disaster. Just to make things more interesting, right after the Army adopted the P320, videos started surfacing of the gun firing when dropped. Not exactly what you want in a military sidearm that's going to be carried by soldiers jumping out of helicopters. SIG quickly issued a voluntary upgrade program, replacing triggers on civilian models. The military versions got the fix too, but it raised uncomfortable questions about the testing process. How do you miss something as basic as drop safety during military trials? The current nightmare. And now we're here, 2025, and the P320 controversy has reached fever pitch. Reports of uncommanded discharges are making the headlines. Lawsuits are claiming the gun fires without trigger manipulation. There are allegations that a service member was killed by his own duty weapon. SIG launched their "It Ends Now" social media campaign to combat the negative publicity, but it seems to have backfired spectacularly. Instead of reassuring people, it made them more suspicious about what SIG might be trying to cover up. Every time someone reports a P320 malfunction, people immediately ask, "This is what our soldiers are carrying?" It's a public relations nightmare that keeps getting worse. The money factor. The original contract was worth over $580 million over 10 years. But when you factor in spare parts, training, and long-term support, we're talking about billions of dollars. SIG's bid was $100 million less than Glock's, which sounds great until you realize that's only about 17% savings on a contract this size. The GAO basically said, yeah, Glock might have been better, but SIG was good enough and cheaper. What really happened? Here's my take. The Army wanted a new gun system, not just a new gun. They wanted modularity, modern features, and a platform they could build on for the next 30 years. The competition between SIG and Glock came down to price, and SIG won by being good enough at a lower cost. It's not one of the most inspiring reasons to choose a military weapon, but it's probably the most honest one. The real question isn't whether the Army made the perfect choice, it's whether they made a reasonable choice given what they knew at the time. And with all these P320 problems surfacing, that's looking more and more like a no. The drop safety issue was embarrassing, but SIG fixed it quickly. The current legal troubles are more concerning because they're ongoing and getting worse, not better. The reality check. Look, military procurement is messy, political, and rarely results in the best choice by any objective measure. It's about balancing performance, cost, politics, and a dozen other factors. The P320 isn't perfect, and the current controversy is making it look worse every day. But neither was the M9, and neither was the 1911 before that. Every military sidearm has compromises, and every adoption decision makes some people happy and others furious. The difference is that most military sidearms don't have ongoing lawsuits claiming they fire by themselves. So, there you have it. The real story behind one of the most controversial military procurement decisions in recent history. The Army picked the gun that made the most sense given their requirements and budget constraints in 2017. Whether that was the right decision is looking more questionable every day as these P320 problems continue to make headlines. Sometimes you get what you pay for, and sometimes saving $100 million up front costs you a lot more in reputation and legal bills down the road. Thanks for watching, and hey, if this deep dive into military drama was interesting, smash that like button and let me know in the comments whether you think Army made the right choice. With all these P320 problems in the news, I'm genuinely curious what you think about this whole mess. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.